Good morning. My name is Gregory Drew. I am with the Crowder College EMS Program's Paramedic Hybrid Program. Today I will be bringing you the discussion on the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, otherwise known as the RAAS system. The body has many systems that work together in order to maintain homeostasis. The renin-angiotensin-aldosterone pathway is no different. It has three functions: to maintain a proper blood pressure, blood flow, to maintain the right concentration of sodium in the blood, and finally, to maintain the right amount of water in the blood as well. To make sure that these three things stay in proper levels, several hormones and several organs work together to accomplish this task. How does this happen? In this cartoon, you're going to see the low blood pressure in the renal arteries or renal veins going into the kidney. Kidney looks a little worried because he's releasing out renin. This is the tubulars that leave out of the kidney that release urine. The kidneys sense a decrease in blood pressure and release renin from the JGA apparatus, which is the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Renin is then converted into angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. In the lungs, angiotensin converting enzymes known as ACE convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. In part 2, angiotensin 2 causes vasoconstriction, resulted in the increased blood pressure. Angiotensin 2 also stimulates the adrenal glands to release aldosterone. Within the kidneys, aldosterone promotes the reabsorption of sodium and water. The circulating blood volume increases, further raising the blood pressure. So how does this happen? I'm going to give you a few review points real quick. Blood pressure is primarily maintained by the balance function of three systems: vasopressin, the antidiuretic hormone, and ADH, which controls water balance by regulating the loss and elimination of water into the urine. RAAS is the cycle which regulates the amount of sodium ions lost and eliminated in urine output. The atrial natriuretic peptides, ANF or ANPs, the production of ANF and ANP that counter the actions of the vasopressin, and the RAAS system. Physical chemistry proves that for a fluid-filled rigid system there is a reciprocal relationship between pressure and volume. If the volume decreases, the pressure increases. If the volume increases, the pressure decreases. So it should be stated that the decreased blood pressure by increasing the volume of the circulatory system, or by decreasing the volume of fluid within the circulatory system of the same size. Note that in an elastic system, like the human vascular system, the overall size of the system responds to the volume of its contents, somewhat like a balloon with a minimum and maximum overall size. It also responds to access the vessels, and that can be controlled by muscles and blood vessels. If something decreases the volume of the blood in the open vessels, the pressure will decrease because the size of the overall system decreases only to its lower limit, before the pressure exerted by the fluid falls relatively to what it would be if the vessels were filled just to that lower limit. Similarly, if something increases the volume of blood in the open vessel, the vessels will expand to their limit and then the pressure will increase. So what alters overall circulatory system size? Overall system growth, selective growth of vessels stimulated by the angiogenic factors in tumors or expanding fat tissues. Actions of nerves or adrenal medullary hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine. These may constrict blood vessels like those at the body surface when exposed to cold, thereby preserving blood flow to central organs and restricting heat loss. Or they may open capillary beds in internal organs like the kidneys to preserve perfusion. They may also restrict venous outflow, allowing local blood accumulation while forcing systemic blood pressure decline. Here you see the different hormones that are produced by the adrenal medullary We have the thyrosin, the dopa, the dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. So what alters blood volume? Removing water from the blood decreases the volume of blood. Failing to retain water by failing to retrieve it from the urine when that is concentrated in the kidney causes blood volume to decrease along with blood pressure. Vasopressin, or ADH, stimulates the kidney distal tubules to recapture the water in urine passing through the tubules. Increasing the osmotic or ionic content of blood will increase blood volume by drawing water from body tissues to dilute dissolved materials, such as glucose or ions and sodium. Sodium ion recovery from urine is stimulated by the RAAS system, which is stimulated by lowering blood pressure. How are changes in blood pressure detected? Our brain, heart, kidneys respond to changes in blood pressure via pressure receptors, baroreceptors, and to changes in the ionic composition of blood via osmotic receptors. Baroreceptors exist in large blood vessels, the heart, the kidneys, the glomerulus, and the macula densa. Osmoreceptors occur in hypothalamic and glomerulus juxtaglomerular cells. Now we're going to talk about salt and water homeostasis. When osmolarity is high and when the atrial pressure is low, vasopressin release is increased from the posterior pituitary, and vasopressin stimulates reuptake of water from urine in the kidney. This is blocked by the A and F hormones when osmolarity falls or arterial pressures rises. Sorry about that. Simultaneously, when the kidney juxtaglomerular apparatus detects a drop in renal blood perfusion pressure or a fall in blood sodium levels, it increases production of the enzyme renin. This acts to elevate angiotensins 1 and 2, which increases aldosterone, which then stimulates sodium reuptake from urine in the kidney's distal tubules. Renin and aldosterone production is opposed by A and F as blood volume and pressure rises. Where does renin come from? The source of renin are the specialized cells of the JGA that are found surrounding the afferent arteriole primarily, as well as in the portion of the ascending limb of the distal convoluted tubule that most closely approaches the glomerulus. The juxtaglomerular cells sense arterial BP, while the macula densa cells in the tubulus sense urinary sodium and chloride. These cells communicate with one another and produce renin when the arterial BP falls, epinephrine is elevated, or when urine ions fall. Our systemic blood pressure has many major controls. The glomerular layer of the adrenal cortex responds to angiotensin II by increasing aldosterone production. Other controls include direct ion effects, inhibition by ANP, and secondary control by ACTH. These are the hormones or chemicals that are set into the renal system. The ACTH from the corticotrope, which links the stress axis, including CRH, to BP control. More direct links to stress are neural via actions on adrenal medulla and the cardiac rate. The RAAS system, renin is the enzyme produced by the kidney glomerular apparatus that cuts the protein angiotensin from liver to produce a decapitated angiotensin II. This is cut by a second enzyme from lung and kidneys, angiotensin converting enzyme ACE, to produce angiotensin II, an octopeptide that is a powerful vasoconstrictor and stimulatory of aldosterone production. ACE inhibitors are drugs that reduce the BP. In angiotensin metabolism, we have angiotensin II can be inactivated by angiotensinases. While it is active, it stimulates aldosterone production by the adrenal cortical outer layer and selectively alters blood flow through capillary beds by constricting vascular smooth muscles. The latter actions complement those of the bradykinin and several other vasoconstrictor peptides. Multi-tissue signaling leads to blood pressure elevation. These are the different tissues or cells or adrenaline and hormones and how they interact with blood pressure elevation or decrease. The interconnected control loop for blood pressure control by the RAAS system is depicted, including the intervening roles of enzymes kallikrein and renin, the vasodilators bradykinin, the local hormones prostaglandins, the vasoconstrictor angiotensin II, and the steroid aldosterone. The actions of the vasoactive peptides are restricted to selected response vascular elements. Not all blood vessels respond to all agents. Aldosterone response effectors in the epithelium of the kidney's distal tubule. Aldosterone is a chemical labeled steroid which, with a short half-life in serum, it does not bind to a carrier protein. It acts via a nuclear mineralocorticoid, or MCR, receptor in the cubuloid cells of the kidney's distal tubule. The receptors bind equally well to cortisol. Receptor activation stimulates synthesis of multiple systems that synergize with one another to move sodium from the lumen of the kidney tubule back into the intracellular fluid and blood at the serosal surface of the cells. This picture depicts how this flow of the steroid and the kidney receptors work. So, to give a quick review, the RAAS system is a process that starts out in the kidneys, but becomes very systematic all over the body, throughout the pathways. It does return to the kidneys at several instances. Number one, low blood pressure, blood flow is sensed by the JGA in the kidney, which are cells next to the glomerulus. This is because a decrease in sodium will reduce the amount of water in the blood. Thus, the blood will have a lower pressure. This follows the principle of osmosis, which states that water will diffuse to areas that have highly concentrated solutes. In response to this, the glomerulus, the bed of capillaries that is wrapped up by Bowman's capsule, is next to the proximal convoluted tubule, which releases a hormone known as renin into the bloodstream. Renin then moves to the liver, where it is converted into an inactive peptide protein, angiotensinogen, to an active angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 then travels to the lungs, where the enzyme known as angiotensin converting enzymes, or ACE, convert the angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. One effect angiotensin 2 has on the body is its ability to constrict blood vessels, thus increasing blood pressure. Another function of it is to stimulate the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys to produce the hormone aldosterone. Aldosterone stimulates the reabsorption of sodium in the distal convoluted tubules. Increasing sodium reabsorption means that water and chloride will follow, thus increasing the blood volume. An increase of blood volume may also trigger the release of the hormone known as atrial natriuretic hormone, which inhibits the release of aldosterone, keeping the body's water and sodium levels at the homeostatic levels. This last step is known as the negative feedback loop. And that is the angiotensin-aldosterone pathway. If one can grasp the concept of osmosis and how water flows highly concentrated solutes, one will be able to understand blood pressure and other methods of osmoregulation, water balancing in the kidney. So, thank you for your time and have a good day.